Right now I'm on vacation, so I wanted to make a simple video talking about an amazing show. If you ever watched any of my past videos, you might know I mentioned Breaking Bad a lot. Why? Because I love it. It's one of my favorite shows right under Dexter. And honestly, it's about as close to a perfect run as television gets. Before I even watched the show, I knew how it ended. Thanks, MadPat. Anyways, it's one of those shows that has such a far reach in media, especially meme culture. And you know, that's a strange connection. The more serious and good your show is, the better memes that come out of it. But even after 18 years since it came out, it's still wildly talked about. There are hundreds of deep dives and other theories about this show, and its spin-off, Better Call Saul, which in its own right, Better Call Saul is also as popular and talked about as Breaking Bad, leading to many debates on which is better. And that's a really hard question. Each show has some amazing moments and some of the most iconic scenes ever in television. So let's discuss both shows. Breaking Bad is all about Walter White, a man who lives a very timid life before discovering he has lung cancer. A moment so crucial that he decides to, well, break bad and cook crystal meth to leave money for his family after he dies. However, his whole meth thing slowly slips into pride and ego. Breaking Bad isn't really about drugs, it's about ego. It's about a man who felt small his entire life, finally getting a taste of power and refusing to let it go.
What I need is a choice. My entire life, it just seems I never, had a real say about any of it.
The entire show is watching a man crumble more and more, seeing how far he truly will go to complete his goals, slowly becoming a completely different person. Looking back on the show, it's crazy to see how many details and hidden clues that foreshadow Walter's eventual fall. Also, him and Jesse's dynamic is absolutely perfect. Every time they're happy together, it truly feels like a father and son relationship. However, Walter being Walter truly does torture Jesse, like telling him to literal Nazis to be tortured and forced to see his own girlfriend get shot. And it's moments like this that truly spark the question, does Walter actually care for Jesse? Or has he simply just been using him from the start? Because I remember a lot of good scenes with him. However, there are a lot more scenes of Walter just being an asshole to Jesse. And Jesse's character is so tragic. He was just a teenager who was doing some petty drug deals, and without knowing it, got wrapped into murder and working for the biggest meth empire in the world. Every time Walter climbs higher, Jesse sinks lower. Honestly, Jesse's the only character to have a somewhat happy ending. However, Jesse had to walk through literal hell to get there.
You can't keep getting away with this! You can't keep getting away with it! He won't.
One of the best things Breaking Bad does is expand on the family, show how everything slowly crumbles because of Walter's actions, the manipulation, the death, how characters evolve. It's not just Walter who changes, everyone is forced to because of Walter. And all their dynamics are perfect. Even if some people hate Skyler, she was right, trying to protect the family and somewhat protect Walter. And then Hank finally figuring out his own brother-in-law was the man he's been hunting the entire show is simple, and it worked perfectly. One of my favorite scenes from the show has to be when Walter calls Skyler to give her an out. See, Walter became more and more selfish, warping his goals to provide for his family into a self-centered ego stroke. He had chances to quit. He beat cancer. He had $10 million. He owned a car wash, and yet he still didn't stop. Because it was never about the money. It was about finally having control over something. It gets so out of hand that he pulls a knife on his own family, kidnaps his own daughter, and there's no music. Just sit there with it.
Stop! Mom, stop it! Stop, Dad! Stop it now! Stop! Stop! Just please stop!
What the hell is wrong with you? We're a family!
Eventually, he realizes how far he's gone, calls his wife. Sure, what he might be saying is harsh, but it's all so his wife doesn't get arrested and has an alibi. So even though his words are hurtful, it's a very loving scene of Walter coming back to reality and actually providing his family a way out of a problem. Even if that problem was his fault, you get my point. And you know, for a show that started in 2008, it has some of the most beautiful desert cinematography ever put on TV. The tragedy of Jimmy McGill is that every time he tries to be better, the world reminds him who he thinks he is. It's such a slow and soft show in the best way possible. It truly feels like someone running from their past. Every first episode of a new season starts with a black and white footage of the present day before we transition into the past. The show is at first nothing like Breaking Bad in terms of criminal behavior, but it does eventually get into it and definitely expands the world. See, the show expands the story of the world beautifully. Characters like Mike get absolutely gut-wrenching backstories.
He put me up on a pedestal. And I had to show him that I was down in the gutter with the rest of them. Broke my boy. I broke my boy.
See, this show is so creative for a prequel. Most prequels feel limited because they're scared of ruining the main show. Yet this show expands so much on names that were briefly mentioned in Breaking Bad. It deepens relationships and answers questions I didn't even know I had. The story with Nacho is so tragic and beautiful at the same time. And Lalo, he's such an amazing villain. He's fun and entertaining while still being ruthless and terrifying. And again, the show takes so many risks for a prequel, and it works so well, like Lalo killing one of the main characters out of nowhere. It doesn't feel rushed, it feels out of nowhere and tragic in the best way it can. The scenes with Jimmy's brother slowly spiraling mentally until he eventually takes his own life, it's truly tragic. There is something so sad about this show. There are characters here that I know are going to die, and every second watching, there is some tension because you want to see these characters live or get justice, but unfortunately, they won't.
So when you are sitting in your shitty nursing home and you're sucking down on your jello night after night for the rest of your life, you think of me. You twisted fuck.
Es suyo.
I feel like there is more iconic scenes here than there is in Breaking Bad, just simply because of how tragic the show is. But at the same time, the story is one of redemption. Saul is the main reason why Walter was able to get away with so much, and at the end, he has to face that fact. He could have gotten a lighter sentence, but he chose not to, giving an infamous speech.
I was more than a willing participant. I was indispensable. I kept Walter White out of jail. I laundered his money, I lied for him, I conspired with him, and I made millions. If he hadn't walked into my office that day, Walter White would have been dead or behind bars within a month. Fact is, Walter White couldn't have done it without me.
Better Call Saul feels different. It doesn't feel like a transformation like Breaking Bad. It feels like watching someone slowly sink into something you know they can't escape. Both of these shows are amazing. Both shows do nothing but make the other better. But if I had to keep one and delete the other, honestly, I'd keep Breaking Bad. Breaking Bad is about becoming the villain. Better Call Saul is realizing you already were one. And for me, watching someone choose to become evil is just slightly more entertaining. I also think Breaking Bad has a lot more funny moments, which contrast the drama perfectly. Better Call Saul kept itself very serious and tragic, which is a good thing. And sure, it had its funny moments, but I think Breaking Bad did it first and just slightly better. Anyways, tell me what you think. Which is your favorite? If you like this video, subscribe. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.